For thousands of years, civilizations across the world have carried a warning about a figure who rises during a time of global confusion, a deceiver, a destroyer, a master of illusion who turns the world upside down. Different cultures call him different names, yet the core idea remains the same. In Islamic tradition, he is known as Dajjal. In Christian and Jewish traditions, he appears as the Antichrist. In ancient civilizations, he is reflected through myths of false saviors and chaotic beings who lead humanity astray. Despite the differences, one thing is clear. Every culture feared a moment when truth and deception become indistinguishable, and a powerful figure exploits that weakness. The story begins long before written history. Ancient societies believed the world moved in cycles of order and chaos. Whenever disorder arose, a destructive force emerged, pretending to restore balance while secretly feeding the destruction. Early Mesopotamian myths spoke of trickster spirits who manipulated empires. Egyptian lore warned of beings who wore human faces but carried intentions that threatened creation. These myths were not literal descriptions, but symbols of a universal fear, a future era where humanity loses the ability to tell real from false. As societies advanced, these ideas evolved into far more defined characters. In Jewish apocalyptic writings, a deceiver appears before the end of times, performing wonders that mislead nations. He rises during political turmoil and war. He promises peace, but brings devastation. He controls leaders through manipulation rather than strength, shaping the world in ways that leave ordinary people powerless. Early Christians adopted this idea, identifying him as the Antichrist. He is described as charismatic, brilliant, and able to inspire blind loyalty. He rises when the world is desperate for hope. His message is appealing, his promises comforting, and his influence unstoppable. According to Christian interpretations, he does not conquer nations with armies. He conquers them through belief. People follow him willingly, unable to see the danger beneath his charm. In Islamic tradition, the story becomes far more detailed. The Dajjal emerges during an age of global confusion, when injustice becomes normalized and truth becomes a matter of opinion. He travels the world rapidly. He performs illusions that appear miraculous. People believe he gives life, heals the sick, and controls the weather. His power is not real, but his deception is so complete that millions accept him as a savior. The warnings emphasize that his influence spreads not through force, but through seduction. He offers comfort. He offers solutions. He offers a world without suffering, but his world is built on lies. The Dajjal narrative includes physical descriptions meant to emphasize not appearance, but symbolism. His one eye represents limited vision, seeing material reality but blind to spiritual truth. His journey across the earth represents the speed of global influence, something impossible in the ancient world, yet achievable in modern times through technology, media, and global networks. The traditions warn that he manipulates perception. He reshapes how people see reality. His greatest weapon is not violence, it is illusion. Outside the Abrahamic world, similar figures exist. In Hindu teachings, the age of Kali Yuga ends with the rise of deceivers who corrupt knowledge. The scriptures warn of false teachers and leaders who twist truth for power. They promise salvation but drain societies of morality. In Buddhist texts, a dark age appears when a being arises who distorts the teachings and leads entire populations towards suffering. Native American traditions speak of a split in the world where trickster forces disguise themselves as helpers while breaking the balance of nature. Chinese legends tell of chaotic rulers who appear brilliant yet bring ruin to the dynasty through manipulation and deceit. Across all these stories, the pattern is unmistakable. Humanity fears a moment when truth collapses, when people no longer question what they see, when emotion overrides reason, when societies elevate individuals who offer easy answers instead of complex solutions. This is the environment in which a figure like Dajjal or the Antichrist thrives, not through supernatural power, but through understanding human weakness. Historical empires often saw leaders who partially resembled these warnings, figures who used charisma, propaganda, and illusion to control populations. They built cults of personality. They demanded worship. They promised golden ages. Their rise always began the same way. The people, desperate for stability, accepted any figure who claimed to provide it. The warnings across cultures reflect this ancient lesson. The greatest threat is not the deceiver himself. It is the willingness of society to believe his lies. The modern age transformed the story from myth to possibility. Technology now spreads information faster than any messenger in history. It also spreads misinformation. Images can be altered, voices can be replicated, narratives can be designed to manipulate millions instantly. A single message can reach every corner of the world in seconds. The idea that a deceptive figure could influence global populations no longer feels distant. It feels plausible. Artificial intelligence, digital illusions, geopolitical crises, and economic instability all create conditions that ancient texts described symbolically. The world is connected, yet divided. People are informed, yet misled. Individuals search for a savior, a leader, a symbol of certainty. Into such an environment, a figure like Dajjal or the Antichrist could rise, not through magic, but through mastery of perception, through control of narratives, through shaping what humanity believes to be true. Across traditions, there is one consistent message. The greatest protection against deception is awareness. In Islamic teachings, the protection lies in clarity of mind and understanding. In Christianity, it lies in recognizing false prophets through their actions, not their words. In Jewish tradition, it lies in rejecting appearances and seeking genuine justice. In Hindu and Buddhist teachings, it lies in resisting attachment to illusions and avoiding blind devotion. Every culture agrees that deception thrives only when people surrender responsibility for thinking. The story of Dajjal, the Antichrist, and similar figures across world cultures is not merely prophecy. It is a warning carved into human memory. A warning that societies fall not when enemies attack, but when truth collapses. A warning that humanity's greatest weakness is its desire for easy answers. A warning that a deceiver need not conquer the world through force. He only needs people to stop questioning. This is the true story told across civilizations. A story not about a single figure, but about human vulnerability, human hope, and the timeless struggle between illusion and reality. The character changes name from culture to culture, yet the message remains the same. The greatest danger is not the arrival of the deceiver. The greatest danger is a world that no longer recognizes deception when it stands before them.
As the centuries moved forward, the idea of a final deceiver didn't fade. It evolved alongside human societies. Every era added new layers, based on the fears of its time. When kingdoms fell due to corruption, storytellers blamed shadowy manipulators who guided rulers into chaos. When plagues devastated cities, priests warned that dark forces thrived in moments of despair. When new technologies appeared, philosophers worried they could be used to mislead people. These fears shaped the image of the deceiver into something far larger than a single myth. He became a symbol of every crisis humanity struggled to understand. In medieval Europe, the Antichrist was often portrayed as a political figure. Troubled kings, power-hungry popes, and brutal warlords were sometimes labeled as his servants. Prophecies circulated describing how he would rise during periods of religious division. Scholars pointed to rulers who twisted faith for control. They believed the Antichrist would unite both political and spiritual power in himself, turning nations against each other through carefully designed conflicts. The people saw this figure not just as a supernatural threat, but as a warning about the corruption that could grow inside the highest levels of leadership. In the Islamic world, scholars emphasize that the Dajjal's greatest danger was not military might. It was psychological manipulation. They explained that the Dajjal would use illusions to create a false world that feels real. He would exploit human desires. He would promise solutions to problems that seemed impossible to solve. Many would follow him simply because he offered comfort in an age of fear. Warnings described how even educated individuals could fall for his deceptions if they trusted appearances more than truth. This teaching reflected a deep understanding of human psychology long before the modern age rediscovered these insights. Across Asia, different cultures carried parallel fears. Chinese dynasties warned of pretender emperors who would appear noble but secretly dismantle the realm. They used prophecy not to predict supernatural events, but to describe the cycle of corruption that repeated whenever people failed to question authority. In Japan, legends spoke of dark spirits taking the form of wise men, leading villages to ruin through well-crafted lies. These stories taught caution. They taught that not every powerful or persuasive figure deserved trust. What made these stories endure for thousands of years is not the identity of the deceiver, but the idea behind him. He represented humanity's fear of losing control. People understood that the world could change quickly, sometimes without warning. They understood that a charismatic leader could redirect entire societies with the right message at the right moment. The figure of Dajjal, or the Antichrist, embodied this fear. He was the ultimate warning sign. The Enlightenment era brought advances in science, philosophy, and politics, yet even as societies embraced reason, the concept of the deceiver remained relevant. Thinkers began interpreting ancient warnings through a new lens. They argued that the deceiver represented an era where illusions would dominate human life. Not illusions created by sorcery or supernatural powers, but illusions made by misinformation, propaganda, and the manipulation of knowledge. They foresaw a future where controlling information meant controlling entire populations. These philosophers did not use ancient names, yet their predictions echoed the same concerns found in religious texts. The modern world grew faster than any society before it. Industrialization reshaped cities. Empires expanded their reach. Technologies appeared that previous generations could not imagine. With every advancement came new opportunities for deception. Governments learned to influence public opinion through newspapers. Leaders discovered the power of speeches, slogans, and emotional symbolism. Wars were fought not only with weapons, but with narratives. The deceiver became less of a myth and more of a metaphor for how easily entire nations could be guided by manufactured truth. When the 20th century arrived, global conflict reached an intensity the world had never seen. During these wars, propaganda became an official weapon. Posters, radio broadcasts, and films were used to shape beliefs, justify violence, and create heroes and villains. People realized that controlling perception could be just as powerful as controlling armies. Many recognized echoes of ancient warnings. They saw how millions could be persuaded to follow destructive leaders. They saw how lies could be repeated until they felt like truth. The deceiver no longer needed supernatural abilities, he only needed the tools of communication. As technology advanced further, the potential for deception multiplied. Television introduced images that shaped opinions instantly. Governments, corporations, and media institutions gained influence over how people saw the world. Experts began warning that the greatest threat to society was not aggression from outside, but misinformation from within. They understood that deception could spread faster than facts. A rumor could influence millions before the truth even reached them. Ancient prophecies suddenly carried new meaning in a world where the illusions could be created at the push of a button. The digital age accelerated everything. Social media erased the boundaries between truth, opinion, and fabricated information. Anyone could create a narrative. Anyone could manufacture evidence. Anyone could manipulate public emotions through a single viral post. Societies became more connected yet more confused. People struggled to identify trustworthy sources. Emotional reactions replaced analysis. It became easy for manipulative figures to gain followings, even if their ideas were harmful or baseless. The world moved closer to the symbolic warnings that had existed for centuries. Artificial intelligence added another layer. Images, voices, and entire conversations could now be created without human involvement. For the first time in history, reality itself lost its anchor. If a voice could be faked and a face could be synthesized, then truth could be rewritten entirely. This was the environment many ancient traditions described in symbolic form. An age where illusions felt more real than reality. An age where people followed what looked convincing instead of what was correct. Across these parallel developments, the figure of Dajjal or the Antichrist remained a powerful symbol. He no longer represented one individual alone. He represented a system that thrives on deception. A world shaped by illusions. A struggle not between armies, but between truth and falsehood. The ancient text warned that in such a time, the deceiver would gain influence because people would not recognize deception when they saw it. They would accept comfort over truth. They would choose appealing answers over difficult realities. Yet the stories also offered hope. They emphasized that awareness, knowledge, and inner clarity protect people from manipulation. They taught that societies collapse when people stop thinking critically. They taught that the greatest defense is the ability to question what appears on the surface. Every tradition, no matter how different, agreed on one point. The deceiver's power ends the moment people see through the illusion.